The vaults beneath the imperial palace are not made of stone alone. They are composed of burden and concealment, sediments of ancient power pressed into the deepest bones of terror. Here, beneath the adamantium roots of the Sanctum Imperialis, past even the catacombs where the custodes speak only in glances, there lies a chamber unnamed in any schema of the Mechanicus, unnumbered in the lexicons of the Inquisition. It exists only because it cannot be forgotten. Its door is seamless, unmarked, not locked, no mechanism binds it, but unopened for 10,000 years by decree unspoken. Beyond it, stillness, but not rest, not peace. A pressure, subtle yet unbearable, radiates from that place, a heat that does not burn, a presence that watches without eyes. The Adeptus Custodes call it Tholos Esterem, the dome of the Watcher. They never speak the words aloud. Even those who have never descended know of it. Not through teaching, but through dreams. Fragments of vision, uninvited and unbidden. Wings that span the sky, fire that sings in the voice of judgment, a sword longer than hope. Children born within the shadow of the palace sometimes cry out in sleep, their mouths glowing briefly with pale light. No priest understands it. Few dare try. In the oldest strata of pre-Unity Terra, in texts long thought expunged, there are shards of a name. Malak Seraph, Sraosh, Agyra Ankor, the first that walks. Myths from Ursh and Pan Pacifica and the sunken temples of the Scandic cryo wastes. None align perfectly, yet all bear a common core, an angelic figure, clad in wrath, forged not of flesh, but of fire and principle. Not a god, a weapon, a thing sent. They speak of wings that tear through the veil of heaven, a sword that does not cut but erases, and a voice that ends wars by merely being heard. Before there were Primarchs, before the Legiones Astartes were a thought whispered in gene laboratories deep beneath the Himalasia, this being was made, by his hand. There are those within the Ordo Malleus who deny it, though not with conviction. Those within the Ordo Xenos claim it an artifact of an ancient psychic gestalt, a relic of the old ones, or a shard of Citan misinterpreted by humanity's infancy. But none of those hypotheses account for the blue fire. None explain the immunity to warp assault. None explain how it leaves no corpse, no ruin, only silence, scorched earth, and something close to awe. What remains of its existence has not been kept in books, but in reactions. In ancient burns upon the vault walls, where even stasis containment failed to slow molecular sublimation. In the dead whose wounds did not bleed, but evaporated. In servitors reduced to husks of fused chrome and bone, while their machine spirits screamed across noospheric strata for 23 hours before vanishing from the Mechanicum's memory coils. Those who touched the halo did not scream. They simply ceased. It was last seen in the 34th millennium, above the skies of Karis Sephilon, a world now restricted by inquisitorial seal. There, an army of unknown origin emerged from the ice wastes bearing weapons not seen since the Dark Age. They sought the Cathedral of Dorsas. They never reached it. The angel walked between them and the city. What followed was not a battle. It was a cleansing, a culling of unclean potential, an act of sovereign judgment. They say it left no shadow, that it walked and flame followed, that when it lifted its blade, the air turned to crystal, and then to blue flame, and then to nothing at all. The angel did not speak. It never does. Some call it dormant now. Others say it is dreaming. A few whisper that it walks among the dead stars, waiting for the signal once encoded in the Emperor's breath. But the dome still glows, dimly, persistently, and the custodes still stand there, not in guard, but in reverence. Something is beneath terror. Something that remembers what fire once was, before it was called fire. In the twilight of the 34th millennium, amid the scattered embers of failed crusades and the silent desolations left in the wake of Exterminatus, there emerged a pattern that only the Inquisition was grim enough to perceive. Across disparate sectors, disconnected by light years and doctrine, fragments of an impossible manuscript began to surface. They were not pages in the conventional sense. Some were etched into caskets of obsidian, others woven into the bark of petrified world trees on death worlds where no scribe could have survived. One was discovered scored into the neural substrate of a lobotomized astropath in segmentum tempestus, each letter an electrical scar. Another glowed, faint and terrible, in the cracked dome of a Schola Psychena's Hall of Silence, visible only to those on the edge of soul death. 13 in total. No known copy is complete, each is a sliver, a wound in the fabric of imperial understanding. The Inquisition named them Codices Malificata, but the name is not wholly accurate, for they are not heretical by intent, they do not preach, they reveal. And revelation, in the imperium, is often synonymous with sedition. The third codex, translated under duress by Lex Mechanic Tiernan Vox on Audex V, before he was rendered unto the Red Cages, contained only a single phrase, repeated in dozens of ancient Terran tongues, some of which had not been spoken since before the oceans boiled away. He who smites with light shall awaken again when fire forgets its name. The sixth codex, stolen from a vault beneath the spire of Glavius on Hyponia Secundus, detailed in fractured prose the engineering parameters of a construct never completed. It spoke of a seed buried beneath the cradle of man, of wings not made to fly, but to part the heavens themselves. It was not biological, nor mechanical. It was other. The 13th, if it exists in its full form, has never been seen, but its echoes are present in a dozen forbidden archives. The Death Watch once uncovered a symbol etched beneath the fused remains of a Necron stasis tomb on Algarath's Hollow. The glyph translated, not through language but via involuntary psychic resonance, as the one who did not fall. The phrase triggered collapse in 3 librarians, one of whom spoke with the voice of a child and died with no mark upon her skin. It is widely believed, though none say so aloud in halls where the sigil of the Inquisition hangs, that these codices were not composed by human hands, nor alien. They were remembered. Remnants of the angel's passage through time, burned into the weave of causality itself. Residual data in the membrane of the materium. Much as a Geller field holds back the tide, these fragments are backwash, uncontainable bursts of meaning from something that cannot be fully contained within the mortal coil. One Magos of Ryza hypothesized, before he was devoured by his own servo skulls, that the angel exists simultaneously in multiple temporal strata. That when it moved, it did so not through space, but through intent. That each of its appearances in history was less a summoning and more a harmonic resonance, a chord struck deep within the Emperor's will and answered by the weapon that still bears his breath upon it. The sword has no name, it never did, but it burns with a flame unknown to science or sorcery. Blue fire that does not consume matter, it removes it. Theologians whisper of soul incision, a process by which a thing is not destroyed but made to have never been. One inquisitor, Akern Valis of the Ordo Kronos, described the angel's passage thus: "Time resists it, reality protests, but still it walks. It is not light, it is not war. It is the first thought the Emperor silenced, the thing he forged when silence alone was not enough." Valis vanished 2 weeks later. His retinue was found encased in vitrified ash. No cause detected. His notes are classified, but his words remain. The codices are scattered, buried, hidden, burned, but they are not gone, and the 13th, it is said, will complete itself when the angel walks again. Presence radiated from its form long before eyes could catch it in motion. The angel never required spectacle, for its nature was spectacle incarnate. Above the icebound wastes of Karis Sephilon it appeared, as if the world had remembered something too perfect to forget, and the fabric of matter had made room once more. No landing craft bore it, no herald marked its coming. It emerged from the edge of awareness, the instant before understanding, where reality breathes in and forgets to exhale. It stood as tall as a memory made whole, twice the height of a man, robed in blue flame, wings stretched like judgment across the firmament. Its limbs bore the geometry of creation, forged not in bone or ceramite, but in the pure symmetry of purpose. Its eyes were wells of light, not bright, but absolute. And the sword, taller than a space marine, broader than a Terminator's shield, was flame made solid. Not shaped by fuel and heat, but burning with the intention of the one who first conceived fire. The army that faced it, unknown in name, lost in every archive, assembled in numbers not seen since the Crusade fleets passed through that sector. Their war engines shook the tundra. Their ranks stretched from the ice cliffs to the foot of the Cathedral of Dorsus. They came with ancient weapons, hulls clad in hexagrammic wards, psychers laced with null-field stabilizers. They bore every mark of preparation. The angel began to walk. It left a trail of cobalt incandescence, not ash, not ruin, light, pure, cold, and rising from its heels like breath in sacred air. The snow did not melt, it transmuted. The flame it cast did not consume, it clarified. Fire met it first. Bolter rounds, Lascanon blasts, the crackling arcs of energy beams, all converged. But the angel did not halt. Matter acknowledged its presence and yielded. Bolts vanished mid-flight, not as though stopped, but as though they had never been fired. Flame parted around its path, trailing into streams that curled upward into halos above its wings. Psychers unleashed their wills. They summoned storms, birthed psychic lances, called upon the name of terror and unmaking. The air trembled beneath their incantations. Their minds could not contain what answered. Each one convulsed in radiant silence. Their powers, unleashed at the peak of precision, folded inward, not reversed, not reflected, unwritten. They collapsed into pillars of still light, moments carved into the world and then gone, leaving only the scent of ozone and echoes of a song none could replicate. The angel did not raise its sword in rage. It lifted it as one lifts a relic, as one carries truth. And where the blade passed, the world remembered its beginning. Machines ceased movement. Flesh stilled. Sound paused. One guardsman, a native conscript, survivor of a perimeter squad that never closed with the foe, described the moment in a final confession before the Ordo Hereticus sanctified his silence. I didn't feel fear. I felt recognition, like I'd seen it before being born, and then I couldn't look away. The angel stood before the cathedral, its wings folded as if to shield something sacred. It stepped across the threshold and was seen no more. In the hours that followed, the sky glowed violet. Birds returned. The ice flowed again, and no trace of the invading army remained. Not ruin, not bodies, not bone, only the silence of resolution. The custodes who later visited the site declared no threat remained. They made no record of what they found within the cathedral. Their report consisted of a single word: preserved. The angel had not slain. It had completed a task. And in that completion, the world exhaled. What followed was not aftermath. It was absence, not only of army or adversary, but of context. Entire campaigns dissolved into a single echo, one that rang not through Vox channels or data vaults, but in the marrow of those who remained. The angel had passed. In the decades that trailed its departure from Karis Sephilon, the administratum attempted to chart the event within standard indices. They failed. No conflict could be logged. No opponents were identified. No survivors offered coherent testimony that aligned. The records show only redacted fragments and sealed lex stamps. The entire theatre became a gap in the ledger, a page left blank not by negligence, but by instruction. And yet, there were echoes. Ships translating out of the warp near the sector described momentary flux, oscillations in Geller fields, Vox interference that whispered psalms in voices they did not recognize. Choirs aboard imperial vessels heard notes not in the hymnals. Mechanicum engines ran smoother, as if soothed by an intelligence they could not quantify. One navigator later described a sensation of passing through light-made memory, a phrase that brought him under immediate censure by the Navis Nobilite. The ecclesiarchy did what it has always done. It built cathedra. At Dorsas, where the angel last stepped, they raised the Basilica of the Last Fire. It stands to this day, unmanned, never consecrated. The doors remain sealed, not by lock or decree, but by a threshold that no one has been willing to cross since its completion. No footprints were ever found within the basilica, only a warmth, unconnected to thermal origin, that radiates from the altar during the lunar aphelion of Karis Sephilon's orbit. A warmth that sings in the bones of those who listen too closely. In other systems, distant, yet touched by the same sweep of celestial alignment, similar silences have appeared. A mining fleet sent to Brakal Theta ceased transmission upon atmospheric entry. Weeks later, a single astropath emerged from the storm belt, walking across molten rock. She bore no injuries. Her eyes glowed faint blue for 7 hours. She spoke a name that no one recognized, and then she disintegrated into flame. Pilgrims gathered. Wars were fought over what she might have seen, and yet the site remains untouched, scorched into an image of a winged figure with sword lowered, not in attack, but in completion. What war the angel fought, no one will name. But many believe it was not war in the sense we understand. It was intervention, a recalibration of the imperium's fragile lattice, where no other hand could reach. There are theories, unprovable, dangerous to speak, that the angel appears in patterns corresponding to deeper tides in the immaterium. That its presence is not commanded, but summoned by imbalance. Where too much warp energy collects. Where reality thins and ethics fray. Where a god might be born. And in those places, it returns. Not as a guardian, not as a warrior, but as the final word in a language the galaxy was never meant to speak aloud. Some claim that Malkador knew of the angel, that in the final hours before the siege of Terra, he whispered of it to Dawn, not as hope, but as reminder. Others point to the great vaults beneath the imperial palace, whose deepest levels bear no maps, and whose keys no longer exist. In such places, wars end before they begin. The angel walks. It remembers the name of every soul it saves, and every lie it erases. It never strikes in anger, it never leaves in haste. But when it is gone, the world is no longer what it was. Not all miracles are witnessed. Some unfold behind sealed vaults, beneath worlds no longer named, or within minds too altered to speak their remembrance. The angel's return, if one dares to name it so, came not in war, nor in crisis, but in the rhythm of inevitability. It began with a signal, transmitted from a silent array in Segmentum Pacificus, thought long dead. A transmission devoid of content, no waveform, no code, only presence. The Mechanicus attempted decryption for 3 days before the fabric of the receiver melted without heat. A tech priest entered fugue. When he woke, he wept. The weeping lasted 47 minutes. He did not speak again. Across the galaxy, seemingly disconnected phenomena aligned. A warp storm over the Vezeran Reach dissipated without astropathic interference. A demon engine failed to awaken on the forge moon of Skorvax, despite activation rituals confirmed thrice blessed. A black ship, carrying 1,000 sanctioned psychers, altered course by exactly 1 degree without helm control, and arrived on Terra 12 hours early. The angel did not arrive. It simply became apparent. In the ruins of Pelagos 12, survivors spoke of a figure outlined in molten air, wings that touched neither soil nor sky, a blade whose edges shimmered with stillness. They did not describe movement. They described change. Where the figure stood, corruption ceased, not retreated, ceased. A Genestealer patriarch collapsed into embryonic paste. Its cult, screaming, turned to vapor. The cracks in reality sealed without thunder, and the priests found their litanies already concluded, as though the prayer had finished before they began. The angel moved through the city as a flame through old parchment, not in rage but in renewal. No defense was breached, no fortress stood, nothing rose against it. There was no war, only culmination. At the city's center, the central spire of the Administratum still bore the old sigil of the Great Crusade, faded, almost invisible. The angel ascended it. Witnesses saw nothing beyond the final glow. At dawn, the spire bore a new mark, a sword poised downward, haloed in 12 stars. No one carved it, No one removed it. It remains today, untouched, unmarred by time or reclamation. Pilgrims are forbidden to approach, yet they come still, in silence, in reverence. The Inquisition has no consensus. The Adeptus Custodes say nothing. The High Lords have erased mention from official lexicons. But across the Imperium, those who keep old knowledge, among the Scriptorum Obscura, the Ordo Chronos, even the shattered remnants of pre-Unity covenants, know what it means. The angel has not left. It waits, not in stasis, not in slumber, but in readiness. A breath withheld, a blade half raised, a moment before the moment. It stands beyond the veil, where reality bends to design. There will be a time when the angel steps forth again, not as judgment, not as war, but as truth. And in that hour, no plea shall matter, no defiance shall endure. Only one question shall remain. Was the miracle ours, or the warning before the fire?